Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for your patience. We'll wait just another couple seconds for people to come in and then we'll get going. Welcome to day 2 of Virtual Evenings for Educators, Yoshitomo Nara. My name is Laura Schilling. I'm the Teacher Programs Coordinator here at LACMA. I am a fair-skinned white woman with curly blonde hair, and today I am wearing a long sleeve black shirt. There's an abstract artwork on the wall behind me. At the moment, captions are not available. We usually have live captions available for you during these programs, but we're working on getting a third-party link with those captions available, and we'll put that in the chat when it's ready. So just sit tight for those captions. I'd like to start by sharing a land acknowledgement. I am joining you today from South LA, which is Gabrieleño Tongva land. And I'd like to share that LACMA respectfully acknowledges the Gabrieleño Tongva, Gabrieleño Kich, Fernandeño Tataviam, and Ventureño Chumash peoples as the traditional land caretakers of Los Angeles County, which is the region that our museum serves. I mentioned this on Tuesday before the lecture, as it was, the start of the last program of the school year, but it bears repeating that seeing all of you over the course of the last year has been a real highlight for me and has helped me feel a lot more connected to my fellow Angelinos throughout this pandemic. I think you're all amazing, and I feel really privileged to share space with you throughout the year and to hear your ideas and just see how generous you are in sharing knowledge with each other in the chat and the breakout rooms, and also just seeing how fearless you are with your creativity. Some really amazing art has come out of this program, and I just want to thank you for participating again and again throughout the year. It's been a real pleasure. So as I mentioned, today is the second day of our 4-day program on renowned Japanese artist Yoshitomo Nara. Next Tuesday and Thursday from 5 to 6, we'll have 2 more art making workshops that you can participate in. And we're going to be putting the link to register for those in the chat right now. You can also sign up by going to lacma.org/education/teachers. And we have a brand new program series that I'm excited to share with you as well, which is called the Educator Speaker Series. And with this program, our intent is to invite K through 12 teachers to give presentations, lead workshops in order to share pedagogy that promotes civic engagement, social justice, and creativity. The next program is taking place on Wednesday, May 19th from 6 to 8 p.m. with high school art teacher Alicia Murnick. And she's going to be demonstrating how you can foster cultural pluralism and critical consciousness in your classroom through the lens of art. Again, we're going to put the link in the chat. You can also go to lacma.org education teachers in order to access that information. And my colleague Patty asked me to give a little bit of a boost to her summer art camp programs. We don't usually talk about art camp during E4E, but she has some really amazing offerings this year, and we wanted to get them out there to you to hopefully share with your students' families. These are happening in June and July. Registration information is going in the chat, as well as scholarship information. There are some really generous scholarships to help children attend the camps who otherwise may not be able to. Please pass the word on. The art camps are intended for kids ages 6 to 12. And I'd also like to just share once more about our online courses. I think we have maybe 10 or more online courses at this point. These include grade-specific courses that have art-making activities that you can do with your students or that they can do by themselves, as well as some professional development courses intended just for teachers. And those are at lacma.teachable.com. And finally, you all know the drill. We will be sharing a survey at the end of this program. We'd love for you to fill it out and let us know what you think of the workshop. If you're an LAUSD salary point teacher or getting some other kind of professional development credit, definitely fill out that bottom portion so that we can keep track of your hours. Any questions about your status, any feedback you want to share about this year's programs, if you just want to say hello, feel free to reach out to me at lschilling@lacma.org, and my email's on the slide there. But really, I always welcome you all to reach out to me. I love being in touch with teachers and just hearing, you know, beyond what you say in the surveys, what you think of the programs. It's always really helpful for me when I'm thinking about what's going to happen next year and how it's all going to look and how we can continue to be relevant for you. So I'm going to get off the mic now and welcome teaching artist Billie Rae Vinson, who's going to be leading today's workshop. Billie is a teaching artist and museum educator who lives and works in Los Angeles. Prior to moving to the West Coast, Billie worked in the education departments at the Whitney Museum of American Art, the Brooklyn Museum, and the Tate Britain, where she developed programs and lesson plans for family, teen, and K-12 audiences. She has an MA in critical writing and curatorial practice from Chelsea College of Art and Design in London, and an undergraduate degree in fine art. Billie designs and facilitates tours and workshops at arts organizations across the city, including the Getty Museum, LACMA, Art Muse, and the Los Angeles Music and Art School. And I did just see something in the chat asking if there's a sign-in sheet. We do not have a sign-in sheet. The survey link will be shared at the end of the program, and that's where you'll sign in for your LAUSD hours. If you have any other questions, feel free to just chat me directly. I'll be on the whole time. All right, Billie, I'm turning it over to you now.
Hey, awesome. Welcome everybody. My name's Billie. I'm a white woman with long brown hair. I'm wearing a colorful shirt, and in the background I'm surrounded by plants and some colorful paintings on the walls. Welcome to everyone today. We're going to be making relief sculptures inspired by Nara's artworks today. I want to start out by going over some materials that you'll need for today's project. What we'll do is we'll start by looking, after we look at materials, we'll start by looking at Nara's work. I'm going to encourage you to write words in the chat to answer some questions. If you have any questions about materials or anything else or ideas or techniques, feel free to put them in the chat throughout. And then we'll make artwork together, and then we'll have a share and reflect at the end. But I'm going to switch my camera now so that you can see some of my materials, just to make sure everybody has what we need. So what we're going to be doing is creating sort of arrangements onto cardboard using different three-dimensional and recycled objects. So you'll need a piece of cardboard, a nice flat sheet that will be your base. I've used the back of a cereal packet. You'll also need some things to adhere your recycled objects. So you'll need like some tape, some glue, or both, whatever you've got at home. And then you'll need your recycled objects and cardboard. So cardboard tubes, you could just use just regular cardboard shapes. I have some other things like an old candle, sponge, cork, other bits and things like buttons lying around my house. And if worst case scenario, you didn't have any of these things, you could do this project just using regular copy paper. So I'll show you how to do that as well. So let me just check the chat, see if there's any questions about materials so far before we dive into Nara's artwork. No? Okay, we're good. All right. So, okay, I think we're good. We're good. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. We're going to go take a look at Nara's artwork for today. So let's get straight into it. So usually when I start a class, I always go over a few vocabulary words, introduce terms to students. I'm just showing you a few examples of the slides I usually use. So introducing the word sculpture, texture, and relief. So we're going to be creating a type of art that has three-dimensional elements raised up from a flat base. So those are the three vocabulary words for this project today. So the artwork we're going to be looking at today is this piece. It's actually outdoors. It's installed outside of the museum on Wilshire Boulevard, outside of LACMA's, near the Primal Park, near the lights, right near Urban Lights. And it's nearly 26 feet tall, so it's very large in scale. You kind of look up to it. So the first question I want to ask you is, first of all, just what do you notice? And this is where I'm going to get you to type in the chat. So what do you notice about this artwork? You can use words to describe it. any words that to describe what you see, and we'll kind of create a list in the chat. So the color's white, it's textured, there's a cone shape, it's pointy. So yeah, this is great. So anything else you want to share about the shape of the artwork, if it reminds you of anything, any words to describe the texture? Somebody says woman, somebody says pine tree, somebody says beautiful, curvy, bumpy. Yeah, this is great. Look, somebody says it looks like a Christmas tree. All of these great. These are great. So keep adding words. Somebody says it reminds you of a gnome, a cone. Yep, somebody else is agreeing with that idea of the word gnome. I'll come to another picture. So I'm just doing a little detail shot of the top part. So anything else that this shape reminds you of, or the texture, anything materials it reminds you of, maybe when you look a little closer at that texture. But I'm seeing gnome-like, beautiful, seeing if I'm bumpy, lumpy, there's a face, sculptural. Somebody used the word peaceful as well. That's a good one. Okay. So some of you noticed that it reminded you of a tree or a palm, like a Christmas tree, something like that. So the title of the artwork is Miss Forest. So you also noticed that there was a woman's face in it. Yoshitomo Nara said that in Japanese, it's called Moriko, or otherwise known as the child of the forest. So he says that I began to produce works that took the form of plants like a Tannenbaum. So a Tannenbaum is the German term for an evergreen or fir tree. So all of those things that came to mind are exactly right. So you can see that shape where it's sort of cone shape that reaches up to the sky. So I wanted to share that little bit with you. But I also wanted to share that if you attended actually, I'm going to say something else first. So I want to give you another little bit of information about the kind of context and the timing for this artwork. Again, somebody else is saying papier-mâché, closed eyes, plaster, and peaceful, all of these words. That texture, I'm giving you a little close-up of the texture to show you a little bit more about the materiality of this. So the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami, and then the resulting Fukushima nuclear disaster took place in 2011. And this occurred only 43 miles north of Nara's studio. This event had a really big impact on Nara and the way that he was working. He, in fact, felt like he couldn't keep making work. And it was only when he discovered clay and started making things with his hands that he really kind of got into this. And this is where he created a series of these tree kind of shaped artworks. And Miss Forest is the kind of final piece in that series. He really, you can see in the texture, his fingers, you can actually see his handprints in the surface of the sculpture. What he did is he used his hands to create these lumpy, bumpy textures and then cast them in bronze. So that's what was created. That's how Miss Forest was created. But he felt like this kind of catharsis and, very tactile connection with the material, and it helped him get through those events. Somebody else described it as frosting almost. Yeah. And you can imagine just like dipping your finger in frosting. There's a very tactile feeling about this artwork, right? But there's another side to this artwork as well, which is that Nara, if you went to the lecture, you know that Nara is well known for creating these original characters inspired by his Japanese heritage, his childhood, and lots of other things. So I want to go over a little bit more about the kind of character of Miss Forest. So I want us to look again at the artwork. And this time I want you to, some of you already connected to it, but look at the character's facial expression. And I want you to start typing words into the chat to describe her. Maybe if you could imagine her coming to life, what would her personality be? What would she be like? What words can we use to describe her facial expression? And what can we imagine that she might be feeling or thinking? So type those words into the chat just based on her facial expression. Serene, yep. It's a good one. Sad, zen-like, soft and wise, relaxation. These are all great words. Calm. Yep, these are really good. At peace, peaceful, sweet, calm. These are a really beautiful collection of words. Tranquil. It's making me feel tranquil just reading these words aloud. So yeah, exactly kind of what you're getting from this is a kind of range of different emotions here, but she kind of appears like a sleeping forest spirit. Miss Forest evokes the Shinto tradition of Nara's family lineage, and so she's connected to both the earth and the sky. She's very at one with nature. In the installation at LACMA, she's outdoors. She's transcendent and she's almost magical in a way. So I love this last word, contemplative and almost mischievous. I like that. Somebody says not happy, but resigned to a situation, tranquil, calm. There's a lot of words that you could kind of explore with this. So there's kind of two sides, two aspects that we're going to look at this artwork today and use it to inspire our project. So without further ado, let's get on to our art making. And I will show you how we are going to create today and what we're going to do. In this lesson plan, I've kind of given a couple of options for how you introduce this to your students. And that's exactly what we're going to do today for all of you. You can choose kind of what angle you want to come at this project with. So the two options or two ways you could introduce this project is to, first of all, focus on the idea of nature and natural forms. So you can see here, I have an example of a few different ways you could create natural forms, trees, plant forms, just like Nara created that kind of cone shape. And I'll show you a few techniques of working with cardboard and different materials to be able to create natural forms, really focusing on nature, the idea of the tree kind of having its roots in the earth and reaching up to the sky, just like that kind of idea that Nara was connecting to. So that's one option. The other option is to take on the character side of this a little bit more. So you can see here, I have two examples I did where you can create character relief artworks. So you could have students, I mean, Nara, I think in the lecture, it was said that Nara kind of, his portraits were somewhat like a self-portrait, some of his characters. There's a bit of himself in that. So you could almost ask the students to create alter ego type characters or develop some kind of original character that they build out in cardboard. Like this one, one of the things I like to do is go dancing. So I decided to create this kind of starry spiral with moving lines around it kind of character. Or this one is a character where I took all of the qualities of some of my favorite animals or important animals and pieced them together to create a 3D character. So there's a couple of directions you could go in. You could also create a character inspired by nature if you want to combine the two. So that's your choice right now, is decide which avenue you want to go down for today, which is to create natural forms, plants, trees, flowers, natural forms, or to create some kind of character. Choose whatever you want to do today or what you think would fit best with your students. Totally up to you. So without further ado, the first thing to start with for everyone, and please do let me know if anyone has any questions so far, is to start with your cardboard base. This is what you need. I've done this project with students and they're like, can I use just regular paper? I would always say try and use cardboard or cardstock or something kind of strong, because we're going to be building things onto it. So you don't want to use just thin paper because it will tear or rip. You want to use some cardboard like this. Can be inside of a cardboard box, can be anything. And then you want to start just choosing whatever materials you have and start sort of bringing them on to your frame and start kind of organizing them or arranging them into some kind of form, whether it's a character and you want to start thinking about heads, body, legs, and arms, or whether you want to create, as I said, natural forms where you start to think about roots or trunks, stems, petals, leaves, those kinds of things. So that's the first step, is start to look at what materials you have and see, you know, what could work as what. Start playing around with them and arranging them on your paper. What I'm going to do while you're starting to do that and starting to arrange things is give you a few tips for how you can do some simple sort of 3D techniques. You know, obviously, if you have things like buttons, and I even, you know, in the materials list for today, there was natural materials. So if you have things like, I have little stones here I've collected, I'll hold it up closer. I even collected little twigs that you could use. So it depends what you want to or have time to do with your students. If you have 3D objects like this, they're already going to pop off the page. But if you only have cardboard or paper, there's still lots of things you can do to make them 3D, to make them pop off the page. And if anyone has any other ideas apart from the ones I'm going to show you, feel free to type them in the chat, because this is sort of a brainstorming moment. So I'm going to show you just say like how to do this one here. So you see, all I did was create this kind of 3D shape just by cutting and taping the paper together. So I'll do that now, do a little demonstration to show you. So you can pretty much take any shape. You could cut a leaf shape, for example, but I'm going to cut this circle shape. And I'm just going to cut one slit. So this is just one technique. You might have other materials and be busy starting to arrange things, but I'm going to show you how to make this cardboard disc pop off the page. I'm going to use some tape to secure this, and I'm going to take a little tab of tape so that I have it ready on my finger. And then I'm going to basically just bend and pull this around. So now you see, I instantly turn it into something that's three-dimensional. I'm going to place a piece of tape. You could also then glue like this and push it down. But now you basically have a shape that you can glue into place or tape into place on your paper that pops off. And you could do this, you know, you could create a bunch of these, for example, and create 3D petals, or create like details on top of a character, or accessories, or all kinds of things. So that's one way to create a three-dimensional shape. Another way to create to make relief or three-dimensional aspects to your design is to layer cardboard on top of each other, is to sort of stack. You can see how I did that with this one. So let me show you. If I tilt sideways, let's see if you can see that. You can see my head here slightly stands off the cardboard, and that's because I've basically created a stack of cardboard underneath to make it stand up above the rest. So you can layer and stack your cardboard. And one little note I will say, if you ever get the chance to visit the Nara exhibition, or look up some of his drawings and other smaller artworks, he often does drawings onto envelopes and like found materials like brown paper bags. So there's parts of me that really kind of likes the rough and readiness of this cardboard. Like, I'm not sure I would even want to cover this up. I quite like that you can see the writing on it. So think about also like leaving some of the materials kind of as they are, could be kind of interesting to think about as well. Let's see. Another technique, I'm going to just check the chat to make sure there's no questions. If anyone if anyone has any other techniques they want to share, please type it in and I'll shout it out. I'll show you another way to think about, you know, another thing that we talked about with that artwork that's really, really important is the texture, right? That clay texture. Well, you can still create kind of interesting textures with cardboard as well, and paper. So you can see here, I've created this kind of zigzag folded technique with both the wings on my animal character and down here on my leaf. So I'll show you again how you can do that. So I'm going to take some scissors and I'm going to cut a shape. I'll do it like a simple leaf shape here. Okay. And again, what I'm going to do, I'll move some of this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to just fold back and forth. So like so, to create a kind of zigzag folded, but it creates a really nice raised platform. Like so, and then you just unfold it and you've got a kind of shape that you can then glue down. You can glue that down along the raised edges, and at the ends you can place glue on that and add it into your artwork, like so. You can also, I might not show you this full thing. If students or you have in schools things like cardboard tubes like this, you can use the natural curve and shape of this in your artwork as well. So if you have shaped cardboards or boxes, you can use the shapes and add those in. So for example, you could cut little, what I did here is cut little tabs all the way around a cardboard shape and then flatten and fold them out to create a kind of flower shape or a sun shape. You could even use that as a head with a kind of, and cut off parts to create kind of a hair-like texture or shape. And you can also do what I did down here, which is use these curved pieces and cut leaf shapes into the curved cardboard and then glue the edges down like this to create a kind of curved. And I don't glue everything down, you kind of let some pieces spark up above the rest. Okay, how is everybody doing? Looks like everybody's busy working. What are you doing in the chat? Looks like everybody's good. Okay, so I'll show you another technique that you could use. And this could be used to make parts of characters like legs, arms, but also I can show you how I made this kind of tree branch just out of paper. Oh, so somebody just said they arrived a little late. The prompt for today is that we're creating relief artworks inspired by natural forms and characters. We were looking at Nara's artwork, Miss Forest, that combines a character and a kind of in the shape of a tree or a fir tree, almost like a Christmas tree. I'll show a picture again in just a second. Maybe I can do that first, just a little recap while you're all working for anyone who joined a little late. I'm going to share my screen one more time just so you can see the artwork again. So this is the artwork that we're looking at today by Yoshitomo Nara, Miss Forest. And we were talking about how she's this kind of tranquil, calm, transcendent being inspired by the Shinto tradition, kind of the idea of being kind of connected to the earth and to the sky. She stands at nearly 26 feet tall. She was made in clay and then cast in bronze. Is installed outside LACMA's building near the urban lights. So that's a little recap. And we're focusing on two different options today. You can introduce this project focusing on the idea of creating original characters out of recycled materials on cardboard, using cardboard and other materials, or creating natural forms like trees, flowers, and plants. So that was a little recap. I'm also going to read you some more information about what Nara was thinking. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So that's a good point. Thank you, Laura. After she was cast in bronze, she was coated in a type of rubber, and that's why she's white. So yes, there's a coating on top of the bronze. It's also why it has that kind of white, what you all described as like this frosting. It's very tactile look, and that kind of rubber texture as well. Okay, I'm going to show you one more way. If your students, if you wanted to do this project and you did not have anything, so they didn't have any other recycled materials, no buttons, nothing else, and all they had was paper, I'm going to show you how you could create a paper tree, for example, and still create interesting forms and shapes just using paper. So again, I'm going to have a couple of pieces of tape ready, which I'm going to put beside me so that I'm ready. And I'm going to roll my paper. I think I'm going to roll it this way, long ways, in as tight as I can. It doesn't have to be super tight, but you want to get it as tight as you can, just so it's stronger. That can be a kind of moment where you think, well, if you roll it tighter, you'll get more layers of paper, and your tree or plant form or arm or leg will be stronger. So I'm going to roll my paper, and then I'm going to tape around. I'm not going to tape up at the top. I'm going to tape about halfway down, and you'll see why in a moment. Put a little bit more tape right at the bottom. So this is going to be the bottom of my tree. If you wanted to cut and make roots, you could. I'm just going to keep my trunk flat at the bottom. And then this is going to be where the branches are at the top of my tree. So the way I'm going to create my branches is just by cutting down in little strips, just part way down, and then we'll fold and bend. So you can see what I'm going to do here, just so.
And I'm going to unmute myself for just a second, Billie.
Yep.
Susie's going to put a link to the slideshow presentation in the chat.
Yeah.
So teachers, if you want to take photos of your work and drop them in the slideshow, please do. We have about, we have like 10, 15 more minutes before we do the slideshow. So you have some time, but we'd love to see what you're working on. So follow that link in the chat to put your photos in.
We also have about 5 more minutes before we're going to go into doing our breakout rooms and start to share. So you might not get completely finished, but you can sort of share your ideas, but just to give you a little heads up. And I would love to see pictures. So yeah, definitely take pictures, because I would love to see what you're making. So you can see here now I've got a whole bunch of strips at the top of my paper. And now you can really just gently, you'll have to tell students not to rip the things off, although you could always take them back together. I'm going to start basically just folding my paper in different directions, and you can grab a couple pieces at a time and fold it depending on how many branches you want to make, and just start like folding and twisting and like bending, and you'll start to create some kind of crooked, interesting looking branch forms. You could even then you could leave some bits poking out and some bits bending down. You can see how I'm starting to bend these into a twisted kind of crumpled. You can just see, I'm just kind of like pinching and crumpling, folding to create these kind of weird and wacky branches. And you could even add, if you wanted students to add other shapes to these, you could glue small bits of paper on to create flowers or leaves. You get the idea, right? You can continue doing that and create an entire tree form. And again, you could do lots of different paper work. So there's another technique that you can use with paper, which for slightly younger children, this sometimes can be a little tricky, but you can see what I'm going to do. Just another paper technique that you can use. You can create kind of spiraled or curled textures of paper just by, have you ever seen balloons at a party? And they have those twirly satin ribbons, and you do this, you use the edge of your scissors, you put a paper strip gently between your scissors and your thumb, and then you pull it through. and it will create a spiral. So you could also then kind of create a whole bunch of spiraled and almost like grass out of paper. And there's lots of other things, you know, even with paper, you can still do that technique I showed you with cutting and taping to create raised parts. You can still do that folded technique that I showed you. I'm going to show my other designs one more time. Anybody got, if anyone's got any other, we've got just about a couple more minutes left before we're going to go to breakout rooms. So if anyone, you can, obviously you'll get to share techniques and things in the breakout rooms, but if you want me to share anything aloud right now, you can. So you, as I said, you could leave these completely as they are and just enjoy the different recycled materials depending on what students have. You could just enjoy all white and all white kind of paper forest, or you know, enjoy the natural materials. But if you want to add color or detail, I have done so using here some permanent marker on plasticky bottle caps or something, or markers to create wood grain texture or add little bits of detail to my cardboard. So you can do that. Or I had some sort of leftover, if students have any other collected recycled materials, I had some neon papers at home, and I took and did that little folding. You can see I did that little folded technique to create some color. If you wanted to add that in at the end, that could be a way to sort of add. Put that one over here. Color and shape and a little extra detail to works. Although I quite like it just without the with just the recycled pieces, kind of allowing the textures of the different recycled materials you have to kind of be part of your artwork as well, just like that clay. Okay, so I'm going to end just by reading you a little bit more about what Nara's process, just to round off today. I'm going to read you a quote that Nara said about his work. He said, "Amidst the process of the work being made, the image I envisioned was a thing that was connected to the earth, born from the soil of the earth, that grew into the sky, into outer space, and thus communicated with the universe like an antenna. It is like a catalyst between the grand earth upon which we place our feet and the sky that our hands cannot reach. Instead of simply being an artwork, the work has that kind of presence. I think of Indigenous people who climb to high places in order to communicate with the sky and recite prayers. There is something similar to that that I feel exists inside of me, and I think that is why that this piece was born." So that's a little extra context to kind of what Nara was thinking about. It really connects to all those things you said about Miss Forrest, that peacefulness, calm and tranquility, those ideas. So without further ado, I think we should get to our breakout rooms so that we have lots of time to share ideas. So I'm going to share my screen one more time. So for the breakout rooms, we will do just 10 minutes in breakout rooms, and we will start by sharing your artwork with the group. So just for the first 5 minutes, you can share how you arranged or transformed your materials to create your sculpture and what techniques you used. Did you fold? Did you crumple? Did you do anything, try out any other new sculptural techniques I didn't mention? And also then tell the group which direction you went in. Did you how does your sculpture represent nature, or maybe describe your character and the different traits or parts of your character? And then in the last 5 minutes, you can discuss classroom applications with your group. So how you might adapt, change this project in the classroom, how you might modify it for younger or older students. Yeah, and then what we'll do is come back together and maybe take a couple of volunteers. You know, you could have one person from each group, or whoever would like to share ideas with the broader group. So that's the plan. I think we're kind of ready to go to our breakout rooms. Susie and Lara, we ready to go?
Yeah, the rooms are open now.
Okay. Okay. All right. So sometimes there's some people who are left in the main room who decide not to join the breakout rooms, which is totally fine. And I will stay here with all of you and maybe give you a few of in the lesson plan for this project. I have a few kind of modifications. And yep, that's cool. Okay, and so I'll share with you a few different modifications that you could make depending on younger, older students. And also, this is if you didn't join the breakout room, but you still want to share some of those ideas or things that you did, you just, your camera's not working or for whatever reason, feel free to type in the chat any ideas that you have, techniques, modifications, adaptations, how this could work with your students. And I will read them aloud because it, could still inspire other people who are still in the main room with us. Let's see, where's my little note for modifications? Okay, so if you're doing this with younger students, so, K through 2, you might want to focus on more just sort of simpler sculptural techniques. So if you have things like the buttons and the corks or little stones and sticks and things like that, more of the kind of arranging and focusing on the shape and texture rather than trying to do all the stuff with the heavy motor skills. And also focusing on like what shapes can represent what, like what looks like a stem, or what shape is a stem, what shapes are the petals. You could even show pictures of different plants and kind of focus on that, or you could focus on characters, head, body, arms, legs, what different objects, like if you've got popsicle sticks, or what shapes look like those could represent those different things in their character. So kind of a simpler idea. For older students, I think it could be really interesting to think a little bit more about Nara's experience and what happened with the natural disasters and the nuclear disaster that happened so close to his studio, and how it affected him, and kind of think about how he created this character that was very therapeutic, almost the process of making, and that she is this kind of calm and transcendent natural being, and have them think a little bit more about what character traits they would want to create, maybe based on their own feelings, the current moment. You could delve a little bit more deeply into those things, start to think about kind of character traits, connect it with that kind of social context, maybe focus more on that. I also think I will show you some other, let me see if I got my other little, okay, yeah, here we go. This is, I'm going to switch my cameras. If anybody wants to share any ideas, any techniques, anything that they think would connect with their students, type it in the chat and I'll shout it out. I'm going to switch my camera just to show you one other artwork I did. This was an artwork that was a relief project. It was slightly different than creating natural forms, and slightly different than doing characters. But I wanted to show you just because if you really wanted to make this kind of an extended project, you could do a painted version. So this I I glued all these to create this kind of nature galaxy scape. And I then painted the skyline. And you could, do a kind of 2-part project where you kind of paint a background and then add in these recycled materials on top if you had the time. I'm also going to do a little close-up here of this technique, which I didn't get to show you, which is just using napkins from takeout restaurants that I then, almost like paper mache, you can create this crumpled texture. I used it to create a mountain texture. I basically painted it with glue and like to create this really, maybe you can get real close up there. I painted it with glue and scrunched it up, which you could use to create leaves or hair or all kinds of clothing textures. And then it dries. If you paint it with enough glue, it dries hard. So you could, and then I painted it on top of that, which hardened it even more. But that's another technique that you could use. So creating painted surfaces, painting softer. You could even paint, if students have fabrics at home, you can paint those with glue and scrunch them up to create little crumpled leaf petals or all kinds of things. So there's kind of a lot of different directions that you could take this project in terms of the materials you have. I kind of wanted to show you, oh, actually, here's one other thing I was going to say, because I had a teacher ask me this not so long ago when I did a similar project. Since we're going through into hybrid learning, sometimes we aren't using the same materials. Students have cereal boxes at home and have all kinds of stuff that you can use for recycled materials, which you might not then have in the classroom. But if you have things like any kind of cardboard boxes that you can chop up, you can also order chipboard, which you can use as a cardboard base, which would be really easy for students in the classroom to use if you didn't want to spend hours of your time cutting up cardboard boxes. And you can also get like things like a bag of buttons and other things. If you have outdoor space in your school, I'm not sure if you could gather natural materials. If you have any like little pebbles around the school or things that you could gather for students to use. Somebody asked, Kathleen asked a question about the paint. Yes, this is acrylic paint. I would probably, depending on if you're using only cardboard to do this project, you could use tempera, but if you are going to use things like cork or bottle caps, you're going to want to use acrylic because it covers those a little better, has a kind of a more, but if you're using only cardboard on paper, you could use the tempera. You could also use, as I showed you with this one, if you don't want to use, I actually can show you, I painted to make these petals. I did a gradient where I painted from, red to orange to yellow. And then I cut out the painted paper and used that to create these sort of petals. So you could, if you really want to make this into kind of a painting / collage project, there's all kinds of techniques you could use. I think we should have everyone joining us back soon. Is there any, let me just check in the chat if there was any other questions apart from that paint question. No, okay, yes. So yeah, you can also, if you do decide to do this as a painting project, again, you could look at Nara's work and really focus on that idea of texture and creating, like different textures of paint as well. Think about how you can create texture in using different materials, whether it's folded cardboard or, all of that stuff, good stuff. But welcome back, everybody. I'll switch my camera around. Okay. We were having a little chat here in the main room. I would love when everyone gets back. Is everyone back yet? Yeah.
In just a few seconds, they should all be back.
Okay, few more minutes. All right, we'll give it a second. But when you all come back, love to hear what you shared, hear any ideas, and I think Laura and Susie will maybe share the slideshow. So all you got to do is you can raise your hand. We'll find you. Susie will help me. Someone says there's a question here. Is there a Japanese forest spirit or that the artist had particular, or like that was inspired? Yes, the name of the, let me find the name again. Moriko. I think it's more of a phrase, which is the child of the forest. I did like Google that term, and I found a selection of all kinds of different images and characters that all kind of showed this kind of character of the forest. So I think there is a character, yes, and the name is Moriko. That's the term that Nara used. But yes, we should definitely share if anyone wants to. Can we see any raised hands that I can't see?
Amber's hand is raised.
Okay, Amber, do you want to share with us?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if you know, LAUSD, we're coming back next week. So I was at my room prepping for next week. So I enjoyed watching you. It was wonderful, very therapeutic. And I just was talking to my group about how every year, you know, with today being Earth Day, I typically incorporate something like this where they're using materials that they can reuse and create some kind of art similar to this. I thought that would be a good tie-in to include on something like Earth Day, where they can have that activity similar to this. So classroom application is why I wanted to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. And I think, you know, I called this recycled relief sculptures. I didn't focus too much on the materials because it's always hard to know what students will have. But yes, the premise of this was you could connect that idea of recycling and using materials to give them new meaning, especially in connection with this idea, this Miss Forest. I'm loving some of these artworks, by the way, that I'm seeing. The textures and the different shapes and forms and the kind of storytelling that I'm seeing is really amazing. There we go. Okay. Yep.
Billie, I don't know if the artist who created this one was at your dancing sculptures workshop, but this aluminum foil figure is making me think of that workshop that you did, I think, last time.
Yeah, that's what it was from. I pounded it flat with a hammer.
That's amazing. I love it. Reusing artworks. Yeah, that's tin foil is also a really good one for creating three-dimensional forms as well, easily. That could be really good. I've done this with younger students and they find tin foil like really easy to bend and form. I love that. Somebody said they also still have their tinfoil person on their desk. Anyone else want to share something that they discussed or a classroom application? We had the recycling idea. Anyone I can't see? Susie?
I'm not seeing any hands up.
I wasn't able to get it on there, but I have a little, I don't know if
I'm trying to find. Oh yeah. Oh, beautiful. Wow. Oh, and I love that as well. The black and white, the kind of high contrast. That could be another angle, Zonia. That's really beautiful. I love how that stands out. You could, yeah, if you wanted to, just seeing yours, I don't know if you were going for this, but you could use like black cardstock and white cardstock and create kind of high contrast, focusing on that kind of idea of contrast in art, especially since Nara uses that white.
So we're just my kids and I, we're reading it's graphic novels, Jim Henson Dragons, and so some of them I feel like they drew from Japanese art, and so I thought this would be a really good activity to close off the last book that we're reading.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And I love, you know, I think that's really also Nara's so known for kind of creating these kind of original characters and designing. So dragons and creating your own dragons could be really interesting connection. Okay, I'm loving these artworks, the buttons, and that looks like all kinds of natural material there that I can see as well. These are amazing. I love it. We also talked about using, if you had extra time. Oh, I love that too. Like packaging and like all these kinds of amazing shapes. That looks great. Looks like flowers growing, beautiful, using the colors of the food packaging. Yeah, that's also, yeah. Go ahead, Laura.
Sorry, Billy. Just a quick heads up to everybody. We put the survey into the chat, so you can go ahead and sign in there if you need to now. And we're just about at time, so I'm going to click through and see what other, if we have any other artworks. Oh no, I think that was maybe the last one. Oh,
okay.
Perfect timing.
I also want to say a shout out. I see some familiar faces here who I've taught with their students, so just want to say hello to those teachers I've worked with before. Hello. Nice to see you again. And yeah, so there's lots of different directions that this could go. I think I have to run off quickly to teach another class, but Laura's going to stay on and answer any last final questions, I think. But yeah, I loved seeing your artworks. I thought they were wonderful. And yeah, great to see all of you, old faces and new faces. Okay. All right, Laura. Thanks, Susie. And thanks
so
to Laura.
much, Billy.
Okay.
Bye.